Yeah, what's up, everybody? I'm Chris Dailey, joined here by John Minton III. He's a producer at ESPN. John, thanks, for joining the show.
Super excited to be here, Chris. Humbled and flattered, and looking forward to catching up with you. Today.
Yeah, we talked about it a bit before we got on camera here. But, you always wanted to work for ESPN, that was your dream job, and then to go to UConn to move closer, pretty much to the campus where ESPN's at. And then you finally get the job. You become a production assistant at ESPN. What did you learn, as a 22-year-old kid, working for the biggest sports company on the whole planet?
Man, it was. I felt very grateful and fortunate for the opportunity just to get my foot in the door at ESPN. It was one of those places where you just knew it was incredibly competitive to get an opportunity to get in there. And when I did, it was entry level. It was the bottom rung, if you will, but it was super exciting. Just getting the opportunity to cut highlights for SportsCenter and then really just immerse myself in something that was very natural to me, which is the sports world. And it was just one of those things that I was able to look around and kind of see that there were so many people doing so many amazing things who were being so successful, and I just knew that if I dedicated myself, that I could last. I could build a career there and be a part of a company that I just thought was having such a cultural impact in our country and our society, and I just felt like I could be a part of something special there. And so it was so easy to learn because there were just so many talented people around you at ESPN from so many different walks of life all over the country. And it was really in a lot of ways an extension of college for me because everyone was just coming from all of these different places, and we were kind of forming our own ecosystem, our own melting pot of cultures and fanhood. And so it was really just a tremendous experience starting there, and one that truthfully just changed my life. That
Yeah.
I just value greatly.
And when talking to you, it kind of makes everybody recognize it's not just the guys on camera. It's like, there's thousands of people, more people than there are on camera, behind the camera, doing all this, dirty work and stuff. You mentioned the word dedicated, which I like, because for me it's kind of like persistence. Just keep asking. Ask one person to get an interview. Like 1 out of every 10, that's the common thing. Like 10 people I ask, maybe like one person like you, would say yes. So you work your way up through ESPN, start working for NFL Countdown and stuff. Like what makes you, kind of propel through the ranks? Like what key traits do you have?
Dedication is a big one, Chris. Honestly, there are so many people at ESPN who are hungry to be great. It's one of those places where people who work there in a large majority have left something special behind them to move to Central Connecticut to work for this company and be a part of something that in a lot of ways is bigger than wherever they're coming from. And so everyone is hungry to be great there. And I think you really needed to just dedicate yourself to your craft and to your job, and to make the time that you're spending away from wherever it is that you left worth it, right? And just to completely go all in on this dream. If you everyone that's there was dreaming of being there, and everyone that is there wants to be there. It's not one of those places where people are there who are looking to go and start someplace else, especially at the entry level. Everyone that's there is hungry, and so it can be easy to kind of fall behind a little bit because of how hungry all of the people around you are. And so for me, it was just, I knew that I left my family in New York, and I moved up to the middle of Connecticut by myself, and I was just going to make the most of that opportunity. I was just going to make the most of, the crazy hours and the crazy days, missing holidays. It was just about being dedicated, committed, and passionate about what I was doing.
Yeah.
You know, no substitute for hard work, right?
Yeah. And we kind of touched base on this, but like, what's like the biggest misconception about working for ESPN?
It's funny, Chris. It's the only job I've really had. I got the job right out of college. I went to school at the University of Connecticut. And a month or so after graduation, I moved to Bristol and started working there. So I don't have a ton of experience elsewhere to really compare to and to say, what the misconceptions are. I'm not even 100% sure what the perceptions are, to be honest with you. Just I'm kind of inside the bubble as opposed to outside of it. But for a company perhaps that's as big as ESPN is, and there's thousands of employees, I feel an incredibly close-knit relationship with all of the people that I work with, and it's such a for me, it's been such a group that's had just such a connection and such an impact in my life. I still started working there during some really young formative years, and the people there just were always really really great at taking me under their wing and kind of showing me the ropes of an industry that previously I didn't have a lot of experience with, and kind of giving me an opportunity to flourish. So I'd say if there's a misconception, it may be that it's a company of this size and of this breadth of kind of diversity, that it may be tough to flourish in there, or maybe easy to fall between the cracks. But I'd say that it's a much closer knit community and family than maybe a lot of people would think.
Yeah, and so you kind of progress to the ranks again and become the feature producer, and I'm looking at what you've done. I've watched almost every single one. I just watched the one on Mike Powell, which was phenomenal, about the wrestling coach and everything. So to you, I'll tell the audience he's done stuff on Deandre Hopkins, which was a huge one. I've seen that air a few times this quarantine actually on TV. Jim Calhoun, the Calhoun Project, I loved. Mike Evans, a bunch of people. The list goes on. But personally, like, what was the toughest one to do?
Oh man, all the stories have their own set of challenges. Nothing is easy, and I think it really starts with the fact that my interaction with a lot of these athletes happens just like our first interaction here, Chris, where you pick up the phone and you're speaking to them, and they don't know me from anything, and I'm on the other end of the phone line, and I'm asking them about an opportunity to sit down and talk with them about some of the most personal moments in their lives. And I'm asking them to kind of share things with me and with the nation, their viewing audience, that maybe is something they haven't shared before, or maybe it's something that they never want to share. And so, the challenges in a lot of ways is just building that trust with these subjects of these stories, that you're in it for a purpose, to share the impact that you think their story can have on the greater good of people. And so all of those challenges and all those hurdles for every person is different. Whether it's Mike Evans that you mentioned, who had a really harrowing upbringing with the loss of his father at the hands of his uncle. Whether it's Mike Powell, who you mentioned, who was a stronger than life wrestler who all of a sudden was afflicted with a disease that stripped him of that strength. Every one of these subjects has something that for them is a life-changing experience, and one that it's really difficult to think about sharing with millions of people. So all of them have their own challenges, but I think it all comes back to the same foundation, which is just building trust and being truthful and setting your expectations for what you think the story can be, and what you want to do. And at the end of the day, there's just so much responsibility in kind of nurturing somebody else's story. It's a lot of responsibility just to take care of that. Somebody is putting an awful amount of trust in you, and the idea that you need to just protect that is the most important thing to me with every story I ever do.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you're doing like Deandre Hopkins with his mother, her sight and everything, very personal stories. Like, how long does it take to really, turn this from an idea kind of into, this thing that we see on TV?
They can all be different times, honestly, but I prefer to not have self-inflicted deadlines put on any of them, just because the more that you're able to kind of show how invested you are in telling their story and connecting with the family and building a relationship, the easier it becomes just to communicate. There are obviously going to be times in the world that we're in where deadlines, whether it's a news event or something of that nature, kind of forces you to push the issue a little bit. But with Deandre Hopkins, for example, it took. I think we were in discussions, or we were pitching the story to him and his family for at least a year, maybe two, before we ever shot a single frame of video. And so, there are times where the athletes or the subjects of the stories just need time to sit on it and think of it. And as life kind of happens, there could be things that happen in their lives that change their thought process on things and make them more comfortable with the idea of sharing their story. So the best part about the type of storytelling that I'm a part of is, we are rarely in that 24-hour news cycle. And so we really do have the ability, and we're grateful for our company to support long-form storytelling, where we can kind of just let things happen and not push the issue as far as timetable is concerned. So a good story takes as long as it takes, and if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. If the story was easy to get somebody on board to tell, chances are it would have been told already. So patience really is a virtue with all of this.
Yeah, and I'm kind of learning how tough it is because I've actually, this quarantine, I've taken on a challenge of making my own kind of film like you do, this about a 20-minute film about the Lansing Ignite, which was a soccer team that folded after a year, and the team was never supposed to even play that season, and it was just a mess. And kind of talk. It's a lot harder than people think. I mean, because I have to actually get footage from people because I don't have footage of Lansing, Michigan. I'm a kid from the East Coast. Not going to Lansing, Michigan. But so it's it's a fun challenge. But yeah, it's definitely tougher than a lot of people might think it is. And right now,
no doubt.
Yeah, and right now we're in a year with kind of without spurts in a sense, and there might be pressure kind of to put on people like you to put documentaries, put documentaries up on TV. So I mean, are you kind of getting any pressure this quarantine yet?
Yeah, you're not wrong at all, Chris. It's been a challenging time for every and anyone, and there's so much going on that is so important to everything that's happening in our society right now. Storytelling is one of those things that I think and I hope is able just to bring people just some inspiration or some additional perspective with challenges that we've been through in the past. And it has been a time for us as storytellers, certainly at ESPN, to kind of rise to the occasion and share things that hopefully can do that for our viewers in a time where it's really difficult to stay positive and to stay uplifting. Storytelling hopefully is one of those areas that can provide an escape for people to kind of have some moments of clarity, or have some moments of strength outside of the world that we're living in right now. And so we have so many storytelling groups at our company, whether it's 30 for 30 or Outside the Lines or E60. There's so many who can contribute to that at a high level, and it's really been firing it all off at all cylinders with ESPN, from The Last Dance to we had a story on Roy Halladay that E60 did, and Alex Smith, Lance Armstrong, 30 for 30. There's really been a lot of projects that we've kind of rolled out during this time in hopes of just giving people some escape.
Yeah, I think The Last Dance that did very well. I mean, I watched every episode. I watched everything you just mentioned, but The Last Dance is crazy. I mean, social media was blowing up over that, and it's crazy because what people may not know is that wasn't supposed to come out at that time. They kind of put it earlier, I'm pretty sure. So that's doing good from ESPN. So when we talk about this, like as an employee, what has ESPN been doing to kind of keep you safe during this time?
Well, we've been like so many other people in so many other different areas of the world. We've been working remotely. Everything that we've been doing has kind of switched to virtual, which has certainly had its set of challenges. But we work for a company that has the resources and the leadership to really get us through difficult times like this, where we've just stayed very nimble and very adaptable to everything that's happening around us, and still kept our core values in mind, which is just to serve the sports fan, any way that we can, anywhere and everywhere. And so, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where we're such a tight knit community, and we have such a strong group of people that we just continue to push the envelope to do what we can to provide for the people who lean on us to be there for them. So working remotely has certainly had its set of challenges. It's not how I thought 2020 was going to be. I miss that daily interaction with my teammates and people in our group, as I know so many of us do. But hopefully it's something where everyone is just prioritizing keeping ourselves, our families, and our colleagues safe. That's what's most important right now. So hopefully everyone everywhere is doing the same thing.
Yeah, and speaking of your colleagues, I mean, you've got worked with Jeremy Schaap, which is a big one. I mean, I always see him on TV for everything. So I mean, this kind of describe what it's like, working with a guy like Jeremy, and then one day seeing him on TV and all of that type of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, hopefully Jeremy doesn't see this, but I'm about to compliment him, and I don't want it to get too much to his head. But Jeremy is a legend. He really is. He's so talented at everything that he does. He makes every project that we're on together better. We're currently in production on a story that we started before the pandemic that I'm really looking forward to getting back out and doing with him. But he's just so versatile in everything that he does. He can do these very in-depth international deep dive journalism stories, and at the same time he could go and play wiffle ball with Rob Gronkowski in his backyard. And so he's so smart, he's so eloquent and talented. You just know that every project you get a chance to work on with Jeremy, that you already have an ace up your sleeve. So again, I'll deny ever saying this unless he sees it, unless you're recording, then I'm in trouble. But he's a great guy, wonderful teammate, and I value his friendship dearly.
And speaking of Rob Gronkowski, before this interview, I'm researching you. I saw a picture, so I'll put it up right now, of you and Rob Gronkowski sitting down. I think it was on Facebook or something. I was just looking up your name and stuff, and it was just you and Rob Gronkowski. Probably looked like you were shooting something, but I mean, it was just pretty funny. I was like, that's the guy I'm about to interview with, Rob Gronkowski. So it's insane. And so ESPN's this huge company, as we've mentioned. You've made quite a name for yourself there. What's been your, most kind of your favorite memories from your time with the ESPN?
Oh man, I've been really fortunate to go to a bunch of great sporting events that I don't know they otherwise would have had a chance to go to. I've been to multiple Super Bowls, Final Four. Just the live events in particular have always something that you'll never forget. Being at a Super Bowl has been an amazing experience. But honestly, the other part that really comes to mind are the regular families that I've had opportunities of telling stories on. Whether it's a family in an incredibly small town in Idaho, or a family in the state of Washington. Kind of rushing shoulders with these families who have these incredible stories. Dylan McCullough and his family in Kansas City. You have the ability to tell these stories that people otherwise never would know existed until you bring them to them. And so, I often say that I have, the best part about my job is the ability to constantly have my perspective checked by running into these families who have been through something in one shape, form, or another that has kind of changed and impacted their life, and then inherently it impacts my life just because I get close to these families and I get close to their stories, and I'm just never really short for perspective, so I'd say that's been the most impactful part for me.
Yeah, and so what goes into producing a documentary? Because I'm sure you mentioned these states, you must be traveling all over the country, as you mentioned the Super Bowl. So I can tell you probably at home right now, but are you on the road a lot?
I'd say as needed, certainly. As these stories that we pursue, and again, we're grateful to have the support of the company for us to be able to tell these stories all around the world. But wherever the stories are, it kind of dictates where you need to go and how often you need to be there. So certainly the world has changed now. It's been a little bit since I've been on a flight. So, I'm coming to you live from my dining room right now, which is a little bit different than an airport. Um, but it's been one of those things where, in the past we've been fortunate enough to go wherever we needed to. And so, you spend a good amount of time on the road, but then you come back and you spend a good amount of time in the edit, which obviously keeps you a little bit closer to home. So ebbs and flows, has high points and then low points.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned earlier because Deandre Hopkins takes 2 years, to convince him and his family, to do a documentary, and you have to gain trust throughout that time. I mean, how do you gain trust with these athletes?
I think a lot of it is just being yourself, and for me that means setting expectations. I think stories sometimes go off the rails a little bit or become difficult to tell whenever the expectations become unclear. And so for me, that conversation happens early and often, where when you pitch a story, you kind of pitch exactly what you want to do, with no unclear terms or no unclear visions, and just kind of stick to that. And the more that you can kind of say what it is that you want to do, and then the more that you can deliver on that, it just kind of shows, that you're being trustworthy and you're being honest. And the worst thing that I think you can do is kind of have unclear expectations at the beginning, where you're thinking one thing and you cause the athlete or the subject to think something else, and then at the end of the day, you don't get what you want. The athlete isn't getting what they think they've been promised, and at the end of the day, you probably aren't delivering a story that's going to reach its potential. And not only will the people who you're working with be turned off by that experience, but I can't imagine that you'll be getting a lot of support from your bosses as well if you don't deliver on that. So it's really just about setting expectations and delivering on them. Being a man of your word.
Yeah, and so I mean, it's surreal talking to you due to the fact I've watched almost pretty much everything you've produced and stuff. As I mean, I got ESPN, like that was my birthday present one year. ESPN Plus. I was like, parents were like, "What do you want?" And that's when it came out. So I'm like, ESPN Plus. I mean, that's you can watch everything on it. So and here comes a promotion. Oh, go get ESPN Plus. But honestly, we've worked with guys like Jim Calhoun, which was personally one of my favorites about him coaching a Division III school, and you really excel on the aspect of storytelling, as you mentioned. So I'm just gonna touch base kind of on Jim Calhoun because that's a name many people probably recognize. Like, what's it like to work with these top stars and guys in the NFL like Deandre Hopkins and Rob Ryan, and the list goes on.
It's when you ask the question and I think about it, it's really cool. Obviously, it's very cool to be working with athletes like this. But I think I've almost been conditioned over the years for it to feel less like that in the moment, just because you really have this responsibility to deliver on your job and to tell the story. So it gets, there's a part of it, and I hate to say it because you don't want to feel like you're ever out of the moment or ever unappreciative of what's happening around you. But we all take those opportunities to work with them very seriously, and so it turns into the creative process and the job very quickly and very often. And on the Calhoun project, I had the ability to work with a great colleague and co-director, Dan Lindberg, and we were able just to kind of bounce ideas off of each other the entire time throughout that project. It was probably the most in-depth project I've ever been a part of, as far as how much filming we need to do. It was the longest project we've ever been a part of. And so as much as you want to stop and smell the roses every day when you're working around players or coaches or subjects like that, there's just so much that needs to be done on a daily basis. It just gets that shift in your brain. It clicks, and you're just out there and you're working more than you are at all at any point in time being a fan. You try to have those moments where you realize, man, I'm doing something pretty cool right now, but I try never to get lost in those thoughts. They're far and few between.
And and kind of to wrap up here though, because I can relate to you in a sense. Like I've talked, because I talked to, Saquon is obviously the biggest, but Tim Howard, which is a U.S. legend for this soccer and stuff. It comes to a point where you also like they're just people. It's like they're not I'm not saying that in a bad way. It's like, oh, they're just people, but it's like they are. I mean, they have the same thoughts as us. They have they have 10 fingers on their hand. They have eyes, ears, a nose and everything. So it's like, I mean, they're kind of the same as us. The only difference is they're insane at the best at football or soccer or something. So. But, that's, kind of how, I don't really look at it that way, but looking back on it, that's kind of how it is, and you can't freak out and like, oh, you just can't, really have that in your head, or else, you're going to mess up and say something, that wasn't supposed to be said or whatever. So,
absolutely right. It's the sooner that you can get over being starstruck around those people, the more special your work with them is going to be able to be, because you're going to be thinking more about what you're able to put together and deliver for viewers than you are going to be thinking about your own experience one-on-one with them. You're absolutely right.
And you want to talk about trust. That's how you develop trust, if you just treat them like because that's what, they like. They want to be treated just like everybody else. So, that's how you kind of build and develop trust, as you mentioned, which is so key to producing these, short films and everything. And I know you're probably, very happy you're living out your childhood dream. So how do you, define happiness?
Happiness, man, it's such a great question. I want to give a great answer. Happiness for me, I'm a father of two. I'm happily married to my wife. Happiness for me at this point of my life is being able to provide for my family and to hopefully give them everything that they need. I was fortunate to be raised by great parents who gave me everything I needed. I never wanted for anything. And so happiness for me is giving my family everything that they need to be successful in this life. And they're two young kids, so I'm a long ways off from achieving that. But just being able to put smiles on my family's faces and with my kids, that's happiness for me. They say, somebody told me this a long time ago, that the employee of the year and the father of the year can never be the same person in the same year. And that's probably true, because both of those things take an inordinate amount of time to achieve. But being, striving just to be the best dad that I can be is just the most important thing. And having even a remote sense of doing what I can for my family. If they're happy, I'm happy.
Yeah, that's an amazing answer. So, you definitely delivered on your promises, your expectations, as we mentioned, or you mentioned in this interview. So, John, thank you, for coming on to the show, and it's, this great work that you're doing. I really love your stories, and I mean that, from the bottom of my heart, because it's funny, because when I added you on LinkedIn, I didn't really know, exactly, I was just kind of adding people that worked for ESPN, and it turns out, I was, looking at your name, I was like, and I looked you up, and turned, it's just awesome to kind of connect with somebody that's, in your role, and, you're doing great work. All these documentaries are, definitely something else. So thank you, John.
Well, Chris, I appreciate you clicking on me on LinkedIn. And, I appreciate, your work ethic and what you're doing. I was honestly drawn to you to see all the things that you're doing at your age. And like I told you earlier, I need to stay close to you, because I'm sure at some point in time I'm going to be working for you. So don't forget about me when you get big, will you?
Yeah, well, thank you, John, and it really means the world, to kind of come on here and to talk to you, and just best of luck and best of health right now with everything going on.
Thanks, Chris. Stay safe. You too.
Well, everybody, it's Chris Dailey from